Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Graduate Orientation Student Panel. My name is Kate McAnulty, and I serve as the Associate Dean for Student Affairs in the Graduate School. To the new students, congratulations on officially beginning or continuing your journey through graduate or professional studies. I'd like to personally welcome you to UNC-Chapel Hill, a university that I also recently joined. After beginning in February, I can say that in this short time, I've really come to appreciate the wonderful people here in the graduate school and across student affairs and the greater university who are committed to student success. I'm very excited for you to hear from our student panelists as they share a bit about their experiences and offer tips for a successful transition. They represent unique backgrounds and have varied academic pursuits, but collectively, they are eager to discuss their paths and give suggestions that will hopefully aid in your transition to graduate or professional study here at Carolina. After introductions, we'll start with a few predetermined questions, including some that were submitted through our Qualtrics survey. And then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. Please note that the chat feature will not be available during the webinar. Please submit your questions using the Q&A tool. You're welcome to submit questions anonymously and if you would prefer to do so. And you can also upvote questions that you would like to hear answered live. We will do our best to get to as many questions as possible during our limited time together today, but we do plan to collect all questions and put together an FAQ section within the orientation website in the coming weeks. Please also be mindful that this is a multidisciplinary panel, so the students are representing different programs, and as are the audience members, of course. So we'll try to keep that in mind when we field questions and answers. To get started, I'd like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves. Please share your name, hometown, program, and either something you like about UNC or something you like about being a graduate student. And we'll just go in alphabetical order to get started. So we'll start with Deborah Barron.
Okay, hi everyone. Really nice to be here. So I am about to start my 4th year in the health behavior department PhD program. I should have maybe started with my hometown. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I will say I spent 11 years in Johannesburg, South Africa before returning to the US and this program. And really one thing I think, having grown up in pretty urban jungles and competitive environments, I really appreciate is just the collaborative and supportive environment that UNC has offered. It's been really refreshing, just really how helpful not only faculty and staff, but even other peers and students, everyone's really out there to help each other. And that's just been a wonderful experience.
Thank you, Deborah. Alex?
Hi, my name is Alex Goldich. This is what I look like, but I have to wear my mask right now. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, and I am in the PhD program studying French language and literature through Romance Studies. And something that I really love about UNC is just the access I feel I have to the world. I feel like the world is at my fingertips. UNC is so involved in so many things, and it's so easy to access anything and everything that you could possibly be interested in here.
Thank you, Alex. Kierra?
Hi, I'm Kierra, and I am about to start my 4th year in the Occupational Therapy, Occupational Science Department. Hometown is Fayetteville, North Carolina, and something that I like about Chapel Hill area, I guess just the location, as Alex was saying, everything's at your fingertips. I think that's also the case when it comes to just different landscapes and different access to different nature scenes, being that we have a lot of state parks in the area and we're not too far from the beach and not too far from the mountains. So something very much that I've taken advantage of.
Thanks, Kierra. Neel?
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. My name's Neel Swami. I'm a 4th year Doctor of Pharmacy and Master of Public Health candidate. My hometown is Shelton, Connecticut. And what I love about UNC is, I would say, the emphasis on serving your community. I think no matter what graduate program you go to, you'll find that students are always taught how to apply their skills and knowledge towards serving those outside of the institution. And that could be at the level of Chapel Hill, Carrboro, and Durham, across the state of North Carolina, across the United States, or even internationally. And so the opportunity to connect with graduate students who have that service-based mindset and genuinely care about making a really positive difference in communities that may be different than their own. I would say that's what really gets me up every single morning and makes me excited to be a grad student here.
Thanks, Neel. And last but not least, Graham.
Thanks, Kate. My name is Graham Zulu. I'm a second-year PhD student of social work. So I was born and bred in Zambia, Southern Africa. And something I like about UNC is that the international collaboration it has, and it's the best universities. I mean, it's one of the best universities in the country and the world at large. And it's also green, you know, there's lots of trees around here. I like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. Okay, so now to get started, I'd like for the opening question, if the panelists could just simply answer advice, just general advice you would give a first-year student coming into graduate study here at Carolina. Kierra, could you mind getting us started?
Sure. I was thinking about this earlier. I would say the first bit of advice I would give someone is to make an appointment or visit safely, however you can, with the library, as there's just there's so many resources that we have access to as students through library services. And like, I feel like I'm always still learning. There's plenty more I'm sure I'm unaware of, even though I have gone to the library services. So that would be my first bit of advice, is to just meet with someone who is very familiar with the services you have access to, because you're gonna still learn more about it, but it's helpful to get a little taste of what you have access to now that you're here.
Great, thank you. What about Neel? Could you?
Yeah, happy to. I would say my biggest piece of advice would be to find ways to branch out beyond your academic program. That could mean clubs and extracurriculars at UNC-Chapel Hill. I'll plug that I'm involved in the graduate and professional student government and have learned so much from that organization that I haven't learned from the classroom as much as I love my program. But that could also mean getting involved in your local community, whether it's through volunteer work, taking up a job, part-time or full-time, that's not related to the scope of your studies. I think it's just a good way to nurture your mind and soul and to meet new people who may have perspectives outside of the program that you're in. I think sometimes graduate students, it's easy to forget that just because you're not an undergraduate student anymore doesn't mean that you have to completely dedicate all of your time and energy towards your studies. You're still a person beyond that. And there are so many opportunities here and in the local community for you to get involved. So make sure you treasure those and explore those while you're here.
Great, thanks, Neel. Alex?
Yeah, I really agree with what Neel said. When I first came to Chapel Hill, I made it a point to try as best as I possibly could to treat grad school more like a job and less of an all-encompassing, life-defining thing than I did with my undergraduate career. And I think that that really helped me be a better, more well-rounded person. And I also think, you know, there are tools at UNC that are readily accessible that can help you do that. So for me, I mean, my first week here, I went to CAPS and I was like trying to get in touch with a therapist in the area and getting involved with going to the gym and the workout classes. I mean, when are you going to have free therapy and a free gym ever again?
Thanks, Alex. And CAPS stands for, because these acronyms, you know, as current students, we get comfortable with our acronyms. So what is CAPS? Counseling, I'm saying it like I know it. Is the C for counseling or Carolina?
Counseling and psychological.
Perfect. Services. Thank you, Alex. And Graham, would you like to share any advice?
Sure. So I would like to say that be open-minded, you know. So this is what I usually tell students or fellow students, so to speak. So you see this circle here, this circle right here, or let me put it this way. So you see this, it's not a perfect circle, but this circle tells us what you know. Everything you know is within the boundaries of this circle. Outside this circle is what you do not know. So being open-minded simply means to step outside this circle, no matter what. You know, it may be something that you don't agree with. Try to understand what someone is saying. Don't be like, okay, I don't want to talk to you because you have a different opinion on this and that. Try to understand someone. And this stems from being empathetic. If you are empathetic, you tend to understand someone without judging them. You go like, oh, okay, so they believe that there are ghosts around. All right, that's cool. You are not judging them. You tend to understand what they're going through or being in someone's shoes. So be open-minded. And I would also say embrace being a student. It's fun being a student. Like one of the panelists said that go out, hang out with people, go to the nightclubs. If you go to nightclubs, just be happy. It shouldn't be like just books, things, homework, whatever. Go out there, explore the area, meet new people. I'm one person who talk too much. I do talk too much. I can go outside and talk to anyone I want to. I know some people, they're not friendly, but I try by any means to talk to people, when I'm on campus. So be open-minded and embrace being a student.
Thank you all wonderful advice. Thank you. Kind of on the flip side of that question, what are some specific things to avoid or some common mistakes for the first year? And you could maybe speak from personal experience or just observations from others. Would anybody like to jump on this question?
I can start us off quickly. I think maybe to answer the first one and this one, I agree with a lot of what everyone said, getting out there. And so I think a big mistake that I have seen people make is they do really just stay in literally the one building that their program is in that first year. And I think we can all appreciate a lot of times you do have these required courses and that can kind of keep you physically in one place. But I think we're all saying it and we can't say it enough to just get outside of your building. And for me, that was a quest for the strongest coffee on campus. And that really motivated me. And I'll give you a hint. It's really, most of the best coffee is around the med school because those med students need a lot of caffeine. So whatever it is that's going to motivate you to get out of your building. But I would also say just thinking about all these resources, for me, I think it's also just, don't wait until something's a crisis, right? To seek out help and ask for questions. And a quick example, for me, it was my first time really teaching and serving as a TA, as a PhD student. And grading was really daunting that I was now going to be grading other people. We have a really amazing center for faculty excellence on our campus. And I reached out to them. They have just endless workshops and trainings for both faculty and grad students like us who are taking on teaching roles. And so that just they really helped me get the skills and the confidence I needed to fulfill that role. And reaching out early was so beneficial.
That's a really good point, Deborah. I think that oftentimes we're so reactive and it's very good to know of your resources, know of your options before you get into a hole. So thank you very much for sharing. Would anybody else?
I'm happy to add something. I guess a piece of advice would be to make sure that you're putting your personal needs and your personal life at the forefront of what you do, right? Obviously recognizing that you will have obligations and demands that accompany the primary reason that you're at UNC. So I guess to flip it to the second question, right? I guess something not to do is be so giving with your personal time and energy that you're not able to explore the hobbies and interests that you like outside of your work and just feel like you're taking care of yourself. One thing that's been really important for me is to use my weekends in a way where I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing all the time. And so this is so nerdy, but I'll share it with you all. Don't tell anyone else. But I really like to garden. I like grow, houseplants on my deck. And so that's been a fun hobby and a way for me to kind of interface with the local community because there are lots of cool, what's the term I'm looking for? Like family owned or local, like gardening stores where I can pursue that hobby. Again, that's just an example. I'm not expecting everyone to be growing tons of fruits and vegetables in their backyard, but an opportunity to maybe explore an interest and just kind of feed your mind outside of the work that you do.
Thank you, Neel. Would anybody else like to Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, so I can add on to that. I think one of the things that students do not really understand when they're in first year is embracing failure. You know, failure is one of the, should I say, factors that helps us understand certain things and improve ourselves, even improving our confidence in whatever we're doing. You know, as a student, you are a student. Don't forget that. You are in the learning process, you are learning things. So when you fail, it doesn't mean you are nothing, you are dumb, you are stupid, or whatever. It's a process. Try to embrace failure, learn from it, and move forward. You know, if you have that kind of mindset, I tell you, you're gonna break barriers in your life. Embrace failure and move forward. That's all I could say about that.
Thank you, Graham. All very good points. Good pieces of advice. Now for a question that we posed with the faculty, I think it'll be interesting to get your all's perspective as well. When we think about mentoring and an advisor, some advisor positions are assigned, you know, some of those are handled differently by program, but when we think about mentorship, could you all speak just a little bit about what students should look for in a good mentor or advisor, which doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing?
I think I can start.
Sure, thanks.
I came to Carolina really thinking that I was going to work with one person. I was really like devoted to that idea. And that person just didn't have time for me. And that's okay. And I think something that's really worthwhile in looking at an advisor is someone who has the kind of flexibility that you need. So if you really work well with deadlines, find someone who also will work well with deadlines or things like that. I think my current advisor really helped with my personal way of working. You know, he was like, we don't have to do deadlines. And I was like, please give me a deadline. And he did, and held me accountable for that and worked. He was flexible to the way that I work and learn best. And I think that that's something really important to look for in someone who you're going to work so intimately with.
It's so important, Alex. We often talk about fit within a lab or within an advisor. It's so important, almost like a therapist. I mean, it's really about that connection and that style, the approach. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
I can go next. In my department, I didn't really have much of a say in who my advisor was, but one of the things I did, or what I learned from a workshop that I took through the Center of Faculty Life Excellence, was that I just need to communicate what I need from her to meet deadlines and milestones. And so kind of touching on what Alex said, like she needs deadlines. For me, my advisor works with me and one of my other cohort members. They don't meet too frequently with me and my advisor. I'm like, I need to meet with you. Like, we need to look ahead before we're done with this meeting we're having today on this topic. I need to go ahead and already meet with you. So I will say, just engaging in that workshop and just being in school for a while, is like, I just need to communicate what I need from my advisor. Whether they accommodate to that is kind of on them, but you may have to ask more frequently than you want to, but you have to actually communicate what you need as your own individual person to your advisor, whether you have a say in who is your advisor or not.
Great point. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to that, or possibly talk about support or mentorship that you may have outside of your department or even outside of Carolina, if that's the case for any of you?
I'll speak again. I think it's important to have more than one mentor. Of course, you'll have your mentor in your department, but like I also have mentors not related to graduate school. I participate in mindfulness meditation, so I have like a community of that group of people and who I contact when I'm really stressed, and I kind of look at them as my mentor there. I have friends who live across the country, and we Zoom maybe a couple of months, but we have this connection to where like we're going to check in with each other, and I view them as kind of my mentor and like checking in on life updates. So I would just, to answer that question, have mentors outside of grad school that have nothing to do with grad school. Especially in times like these, it's been really essential. Yeah.
And just to add one more layer. So for me, I'm also a parent. I have 2 kids and I came into my program with my kids. And so for me, it was also really important. My advisor is also a working mom. And that's been really valuable to me, having an advisor who understands that I'm balancing and juggling a lot of things in my life. And in fact, my entire dissertation committee is moms. And that's a little bit by chance, but think about whatever your life needs are, not necessarily you're a parent, but whatever that looks like for you, and finding people who maybe that's not their lived experience, but they at least can empathize and respect and appreciate what those needs are going to look like for you, and what that's going to mean as you go through your program. So that's been really important for me.
Yeah, I wanted to add on that. So I've got 4 mentors actually. 2 at UNC, 1 at Howard University, and the other one at University of Denver. So they all have different, responsibilities and duties. So what I'm trying to say is that you need to have a mentor or a faculty who understand your well-being, someone who understands mental health, so to speak. For example, my 2, actually I've got the best mentors at UNC, let me give them that. So every time, because we meet twice every week on Fridays. So they totally understand my work. And for the good thing about it is that whenever I work more than the actual hours of the week, they become concerned. They're like, you don't have to do this. When you're done with your 15 hours, just stop working, do something else. I like that. Some people are not, or some faculty, they don't care about your mental health or your well-being. So you need to have mentors who understand your well-being, who understand your capability as well. I'm glad that I've got mentors who understand me and they want to see the best in me. Also, it's not always about the fit of your research interest. It's about the relationship you have. It should be professional. At the same time, it should be personal relationship you have with them. Because if it's about professional relationships, it's more kind of a master-slave relationship you have. Someone needs to understand you as a human being, not as someone to be used. Some people would say, if you are not being used, you are useless. Some people say that. But the most important thing is that someone shouldn't be using you because of your skills you have. They should understand that you're a human being as well. So you need to understand those variables when you're coming across your faculty and all that. If you see those red flags, you have every right to discard those professors or faculty. So I'm giving you this information because I've seen students complaining about their mentors and they have nothing, they've got nothing to do about it. Let me put it that way. So please try to find someone who understands your life as a person, not just as someone they can use, in their, whatever they are doing in their work life.
Thank you, Graham. Now, this certainly has, the last year and a half, certainly been challenging, to say the least, for many of us or all of us. And it's an interesting time to start graduate school. What, even beyond the pandemic, there are going to be challenges that you'll face academically and personally and otherwise. Who can students turn to for help? Where are the resources on campus when students are in need?
So as I started to mention previously, there's CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, which is a part of campus health, which is fully accessible with our healthcare. And CAPS will either help you in-house or send you externally if you're looking for if you're looking for consistent therapy, not dealing with an immediate crisis, they will send you to someone in the area, because a lot of people who work in CAPS are graduate students and they don't want your therapist to leave you. So that's a really good place to start. But I also think, as everyone else has said, just relying on your mentors and finding, people around you. You never know where someone who you can get really close to is hiding. I think that that's really important. If you feel like you could develop a relationship with somebody in your class, even get to know them, follow them on Instagram. You never know, like they could be a really good friend. And I think in a lot of ways, friends are the best support system, whether they're at UNC or outside of that.
I'd love to build off of what Alex said. I really do think that your classmates, and classmates does not have to be limited to the academic program that you're in. They can be the biggest support system in your time at UNC. And there are so many of us who recognize that, particularly amidst the pandemic, connecting with other students and finding people who have common interests has been more difficult, right? Because we haven't been able to interface in person in the way that we've been doing prior to March or February or March 2020. And so, just to put a plug, an initiative that the graduate and professional student government has been working on is developing a platform called Grad Connect. We're hoping to launch it in a few weeks. And the idea is very simple. It's that it is not a social media, but sort of an online space for UNC graduate students to safely and openly connect with one another. And it could be as simple as, let's say you want to go to, an event that's happening in Durham. You can find other graduate students who are interested in that and connect with them that way. And so I think that's an example of how students can benefit from connecting with other graduate students. I can say from my own personal experience that the friends that I've met in my pharmacy program and my public health program are not only, inspiring professionally in terms of I've learned a lot about my professional journey and my goals from them, but they've also just been really great people to turn to when I'm stressed, right? So we know that mental health exists on a spectrum. Some people will find benefit in seeking psychological and counseling services, and I 1000% encourage you to seek those resources out, because the folks who work at CAPS really do care about the student experience and care about matching you with resources that cater to your specific needs. But I also know that there are students who just want opportunities to not think about their academic program or to let go of stress in their day-to-day lives. And so connecting with other students is a great way to do that. And I can guarantee you that no matter what your interests are, or no matter how niche you think your interests are, there are going to be a good number of graduate and professional students across campus who share those interests and are interested in helping you grow in those.
Thanks, Neel. I'll just tag on to that. And so there are also other resources. We have a great LGBTQ center on campus. There's also the Women's Center. So if you're someone who's dealing with domestic violence or has a sexual assault situation, or you're someone who wants to provide support to those students, and there's training on, how to be a peer counselor in those situations and how to offer support. So I think there's many different resources, both formal centers and informal, like what Neel's talking about, and both in terms of receiving support, but also, again, as grad students, many of us are going to be taking on these leadership roles, and we ourselves are also going to be supporting undergrad students many times, or master's students. And so it's also two-way. That's also another way to build community. So I just wanted to mention those other resources. And actually just one more resource, because it's one I've used a lot. There is a great initiative called First Gen. So First Gen grad students. So if you are a first generation grad student, which I am, and a first generation American, that's been a really important support network for me. And they do both social events, but also professional development, and whatever you're going through, whether it's imposter syndrome or just figuring out, how do I explain to my parents what I'm studying so that they can understand me? It's just been a really great resource, and I encourage you to look that out too.
I'm going to summarize a lot of what everyone else just said, but one last thing about CAPS is that they also have group support groups. And so some of them are meditation groups. Those are the ones I participated in. But they also have other groups more specific, like if you are a grad student who's a parent, or if you are a student who's had previous experience with abuse, or if you are military, if you're associated with the military, like there's all different kinds of support groups. So definitely look at the groups as well. And the other thing that tie in what Deborah was just saying, there's the first gens, the whole initiative. There's a lot of initiatives through the diversity and student success. So first gen is one of them. IME, the initiative for minority excellence, is one of them, geared towards supporting minority students. They also have another group for military affiliated students. They have another group for international students. So there's a lot of initiatives through there, and I think someone shared the link already through that. So I just want to say that if you kind of go to CAPS, there's more than just one-on-one therapy. If you go to diversity and student success, there's more than just first gen. So there's a lot of different groups you might be helpful that you might be affiliated with.
Thank you all so much. Being new myself, I'm still learning, so it's great to hear about all these resources and opportunities for students. I'm going to turn now to some questions that we received in advance through a Qualtrics survey, and then we'll open it up for live questions from the audience. Let's see. So this first question, having more work and less guidance, how did you find success while attending graduate school? That's definitely, it's definitely a difference between undergrad and grad, and definitely on the grad side, once you get out of coursework, we hear that a lot, you lose the structure. So all of you all are at different points, but if anybody would like to speak to that.
I'm happy to start, and I'll preface by acknowledging that I'm someone who, I'm not a research-based graduate student. I'm a graduate student who takes courses, and so I know that my experience may not be identical to everyone on this call, but I think really focusing on how I managed my time, as sort of ominous and as that sounds, has really been sort of the key strategy that I've used to manage the increased workload. And so I keep, and this is the style that works for me. You may find something that works for you, but I keep a written planner. I put things on my Outlook calendar that's connected with my UNC email address. I intentionally have times in the evenings and on the weekends where I turn off email notifications, because I know that the emails will always be there waiting for me and I can answer them during business hours. I know there were questions in the chat about how you manage with larger volumes of reading. And I think, in my experience in public health and pharmacy, it's really been shifting away from some of the tactics I use in undergrad, where maybe I was expected to read a chapter for one of my classes and I was taking really detailed notes about the entire chapter. And now in graduate school, I have to be really intentional about how I use my time. And maybe it looks like, what you might consider skimming, right? But that's a more useful way to pick up the material, particularly when the volume of workload is higher. I think breaking down your to-do lists into more concrete deliverables. So for example, if you know that you have a major deadline for your thesis coming up, instead of putting in your planner, thesis draft due on X date, right? Outline for yourself, what does that draft look like? Is it getting together, I'm thinking in terms of public health, right? Is it in terms of having a budget proposal ready? Or is it having a list of verified research that you're going to be consulting throughout your thesis project? Breaking that down and focusing on it one piece at a time, I think is a really useful way to manage the increased workload. And also remember that you're not going to get it all right in your first semester or even your first year, and that's okay. I think it's easy to forget the level of mental and emotional energy that you will be expending as you're transitioning to graduate school. So give yourself, as hard as it is, right? Because you're here because you're a high achiever, give yourself some grace and recognize that transition process is going to look different for everyone. And it might be, 1 or 2 years into your program when you find a study strategy that works for you. But, that's part of the learning journey, I think.
Just one resource we haven't mentioned yet is the Writing Center. And that's another just incredible resource on our campus. And They do writing boot camps. They used to be in person. They've been on Zoom lately, but so that I wouldn't recommend that for your first few weeks of your program, but when you get to the point of working on your dissertation proposal or your dissertation, or maybe it's just like the first like long paper you've had to write, transitioning out of undergrad to grad school work, they're a really great resource. And again, they do one-on-one coaching, but also just a lot of workshops and just tons of resources on the website itself. And then I just also want to mention, I know we're all in different programs on this panel and in the audience, but for those of you who are in a cohort situation, that's been another really great source for me. So going into preparing for comp exams, we didn't approach that as individuals. We approached that as a cohort and, breaking up the work, sharing, you become an expert in this topic, I'll become an expert in this, and we're going to teach each other. And I think that works for coursework as well. We're not competing against each other in our classes. We can all get an H. And so I think that's really something, again, back to my first comment, it really just facilitates a supportive environment. So if you're a slow reader like I am, find a buddy who you can split up the reading, get creative and figure it out. I'm not saying to skip readings, but I am saying you can get creative and find ways to support each other to get through the workload without feeling alone in the process.
Thank you all very much. Both through the Qualtrics and the live chat, I see several questions about the certificate programs that are offered. I don't know this myself of you all, but could you speak, if any of you all have participated in them, could you speak to that experience and what you've gained?
Are you gonna go, Deborah, or me?
You can start, go for it.
Yeah, so Deborah and I think you're taking the same community participatory research certificate program because we were in one of the same courses at the same time, decolonizing methodologies. And yeah, I forget exactly the question, but I think it's what we're getting from it. I think someone touched on just getting out to meeting others, just taking other classes if your program if you have space for it, depending on what you're studying. Just being a part of the certificate program allowed me to be in this course where no one in my department was in, and I could make connections with other students and other schools of thought as they helped me put together my ideas for my future research, and I influenced their ideas for their research. It was a really good bonding experience, but I would love to hear what Deborah's take on her experience in the certificate program.
I think just quickly, it's called the Grad Certificate for Participatory Research, but yes, it's all, it's really interdisciplinary. And for me, as someone, and maybe Kierra as well, who identifies as an activist scholar, it was really important for me to find other like-minded folks across the campus who, as Neel said, are really, service and community based and want to sort of give back and, just let's be real, like not just be in an ivory tower, sort of isolated and away from the world around us. And this certificate program has really provided that space. But I know there's definitely other certificate programs out there. So that's just one, but it's just another way to sort of engage and meet people across different disciplines.
Sure, thank you. And they do post on your transcripts. And so it is something nice for employers to see an added layer of expertise that you've gained while studying. Okay, another question. What is your top specific and actionable productivity or time management hack?
I can start this. One of the
Sure,
best
thank
pieces of advice I think I ever got was from an old mentor. And she said that her goal is to work a French work week, which is shorter than the US work week. And obviously that's not always feasible in graduate school, but I think that there are actual apps that you can get on your phone where you can like log like a timesheet, just like you would for work, to keep track of how much work you're doing and to help you to help prevent you from bringing it home. One of the rules I set for myself is that I will never, ever, ever do work in my bed. And I think that that really helps me get it done because I don't want to go to bed until it's done and it's not coming to bed with me. And that really helps to keep me on task. If I have to-do lists alongside of that, like this is when work ends for the day.
I like that, Alex. I'm gonna try that. No work in the bed. That's good. What else? Anybody else have any other hacks? Neel?
Yeah, I would say make really what I call really intentional tiny to-do lists. And so I kind of have it here. I know no one can really see it on the screen, but this is my, oh, well, now I have a blur. Never mind. So in my written planner, you'll see it's a bit chaotic, but I keep to-do lists of all the little tasks that I have to do throughout the day, and that helps me stay focused. I also, when I have to read for classes or when I'm studying for an exam, I literally turn off my phone. And I think that is a huge life hack that everybody should be doing. It was very hard for me to start doing. So I'm not going to fool you and make it sound like it's easy, but it really does make a big difference because then you're able to focus on the task. And if you have something to do that you know is going to take you a really long time, like reading for class or studying for an exam, for every, you can set goals where you say for every 30 minutes or every 45 minutes that I dedicate to this, I'll take a 5-minute break and start that way. And you'll find a strategy that works for you. Maybe you'll be able to go a little bit longer, or maybe you'll have to go a little bit shorter before taking breaks. And that's perfectly okay. But those tiny to-do lists are life-changing. Highly, highly recommend because it makes it a lot easier to get things done in a very focused way.
Thank you, Neel. We touched on imposter syndrome a little bit, and we talked about it in the faculty panel as well. There is, of course, sometimes this inaccurate thought that everybody else has it figured out, And so I'd like you all to tackle this question. When would you be worried about not having a well-defined research question? How much time is there to explore before committing?
I can start with that.
Sure, thank you, Graham.
So, because my program is mostly about research, so I think I can give some good tips on that one. So you don't have to worry about it. So here's the thing: when it comes to formulating a research question, of course you have a general question in the first place, but it's not always that you're going to end up with the same question. Because what happens is that when you have a general question, you start reading about the topic itself. And when you start finding gaps, that's when you narrow it down to those gaps you find. So you don't need to worry about it. You can have a general question. Then once you start studying about the topic, the literature and all that, you come across gaps and they will define your question. So don't worry about it. Just have a general question and read more about the topic you're looking for. Yeah.
I think just to add something, I know people who came in with very specific, clear research questions and topics, and I was blown away, like in my first semester, like, wow, they've really got it together. And you know what? Things change, right? No one saw COVID coming, and a lot of people who had plans to do overseas primary data collection, they had to shift gears. Or someone, a friend of mine just couldn't get access to the data she wanted to do. It was county records, but they weren't public records. And she thought she'd have access and she didn't get it. So she had to literally change her dissertation topic. And I think that's just reality, whether you're a student or faculty. Research evolves and things may have to shift. So if your first idea doesn't work out, that's also totally normal. And don't panic, basically. Something will work out.
I can also add to that, when you're coming up with a question, it's important you talk to individuals or experts in that field. They may help you understand or identify the gaps in that field, and they may also help you formulate a better question.
Thanks, Graham. Anybody else? Is there anything you wish you knew as an incoming graduate student that you discovered on your own? Like non-campus related resources or any hidden gems?
I have a goofy-ish answer to this. So I am known among my loved ones as a pizza fiend, love pizza. And I came to Chapel Hill, and I'm from New York, not the city, but the state. And there's good pizza there. And I was like, the South, what is pizza like here? And if you want New York style pizza, you have to go to Italian Pizzeria 3. But if you want Italian style pizza, there are so many amazing restaurants in the area. And just in general, the Triangle is a huge foodie area, which I was not aware of. There are breweries out the wazoo, and like there's just infinite restaurants. And so I really recommend just getting involved in the food scene because it's never ending and delicious.
Thanks, Alex. Anybody else?
I can add. So I live fairly close to Carborough, or actually, I guess Carborough in general is pretty close to Chapel Hill. And there are some really amazing study spots. If you like coffee or tea, you are in luck. There are several amazing coffee shops and tea houses. You will very often, especially on the weekends, see other UNC students there. It's just a really good way to kind of immerse yourself in the community and get a space to do your work that's maybe not your home. I think all of us can agree that the past year and a half, it's been a test, right? And how do we separate our work from the place in which we live and nurture ourselves? And so there are lots of spaces to that. I also really like the Chapel Hill Public Library. I know that I haven't been there in a few months with COVID, so I'm not 100% certain how their policies are working in terms of people being able to go in person. But if you are able to go, amazing space, huge, lots of seating, very quiet, and just a great place that I wish I knew about when I started graduate school.
I'll just share one quick gem that took me months to learn about, and now is probably my favorite place, is the North Carolina Art Museum, if you have a car. So it's free, and so not only is the museum itself great, and they have sort of exhibits coming through, but they have a just huge outdoor area with an amazing sculpture garden and lots of trails, and it's just a brilliant place. Whether you're on a date or with your family and kids, or just friends picnicking, it's like a really amazing space. And even during COVID, it was an outside space that for most part felt safe. People are masking, there's just enough space to give each other space. And so that's been a real just escape place for me and my family that we've really appreciated. And I would definitely check that place out.
Awesome. Thanks for these great ideas. Funding is another popular question, just the topic of funding. How successful have you all been in securing external support for graduate school? Maybe you can speak to the process for applying and different opportunities that are available.
One thing that's really highly utilized if you're studying a language that's considered understudied, I guess, by the United States government is the FLAS, Foreign Language and Area Studies grants that they offer. And those are really helpful, especially because a lot of the graduate programs have language requirements, and so you can get year-long funding to study these languages like Arabic or Russian, or, I mean, there's infinite options with language, and those are funded through the different area studies programs and really helpful.
I just had to find the name for the thing I was thinking of. UNC has, I know I'm in a listserv where I'm always getting emails about applying to funding opportunities. And UNC has like the Graduate Funding Information Center. And so if I think you can sign up for the listserv and still get these emails. I know I get them all the time. And there's also just fellowships and funding through the graduate school. I don't want to, I think Kate might be more knowledgeable on that, but I know a lot of them that I've looked at are more like dissertation fellowships for like, as you're getting closer to finishing up your dissertation, you can apply for those. But yeah, I just know I get a lot of emails for things that don't really fit my research, but it's neat that I'm constantly getting information about it.
Thanks, Kierra. Yeah, there are a lot of resources through the graduate school and otherwise, but we have consolidated many of the external funding sources. And so the link was just dropped in the chat. Thank you, Elizabeth.
I would say there's also like smaller opportunity, or I shouldn't say smaller opportunities for smaller funding. I applied and received some funding. It was called the Exploratory Pre-Dissertation Grant. And just back to the earlier question about, coming up with a research question, that's a really nice funding opportunity for people who are pre-dissertation and just need some funding to maybe do some initial field work, see what's feasible, things like that. There's different fundings also for like summertime or even dissertation completion funding. So I think if you narrow in and you think strategically about where you're at in your program, that can also be helpful, as opposed to just like, I need money for my entire 5 years here. That's another way to just sort of piece it up. And again, there's lots of workshops. I have applied and I'm now on an NIH grant. I got a fellowship grant, and even in my sort of first, second year, I went to a workshop run by the grad school that runs. And so that's just really helpful also. So there's resources to help you learn how to write those grants and secure those grants as well.
Thank you. A couple of questions have come in from international students talking about their specific transition. I know Graham has mentioned a couple of resources, but Graham, could you speak a little bit more about just what it was like adapting to the US culture and advice for navigating Carolina once here?
Sure. So I would say it wasn't really hard for me, so to speak, because like I mentioned in the first place, like if you're an open-minded person, it becomes much easier to adapt to a new environment. But of course, there are some challenges. I would say if you're an international student and this is your first time being in the US or being outside your home country, I suggest that it's important to humble yourself, because this is not your home, there's a different culture here. So it's not the same as where you're coming from. I would also say that try to join as many clubs or associations as possible on campus. In that way, you're going to learn more about American lifestyle. When you talk about American culture, actually, there is no such thing as American culture from my experience, because America is a huge country and different places have got their different micro cultures, so to speak. But when we talk about the culture itself, Americans love football. Where I come from, football, it's soccer, so to speak. So there's football, there's baseball and all that. So try to make friends with Americans, try to be friends with them. And with time, you'll be going to places like to watch football, to watch baseball and all that. Baseball can be a little bit boring, but trust me, you're gonna learn the American way. And you're going to understand what's like being in this country or being American. You'll be invited to Thanksgiving, there's like lots of food and be like, okay, we're just like the 10 of us and you are giving us food like it's a funeral. Where I come from, it's mostly at parties and funerals where you have lots of food. So you're going to learn about the American culture in those lines. And yeah, just try to be flexible. What I've learned is that Americans don't bite. Of course, you're going to find people who are crazy out there, but the most important thing is that the majority of people you're going to meet on campus, they're just as nice as a puppy. They're friendly, you can just talk to them, to just when you're even asking for directions, you can make friends out of that. I make friends when I'm in the woods running, when I just tell someone to say, you are doing great, just like when they're running, they'll be like, oh, thank you. Just telling someone those good words, it uplifts them, and you could make friends with them. So just be open-minded, try to learn more about the American culture itself. I know things are totally different, like where we come from as international students. As a matter of fact, everything is different. In America, they serve you lots of food at a restaurant. You go like, I'm not gonna finish this whole thing, So you're gonna learn about that. It's so nice learning new things like in America. And of course, you're gonna come across cultural shocks, cultural shocks, especially for those people who are coming from English-speaking countries, as in they use British English or the other forms of English. You're going to have those cultural shocks, like understanding the language in America. Sometimes you could go like, what exactly are these people talking about? Even when they're speaking English, it may be like a little bit hard for you. But the more you spend time with domestic students, it becomes much easier. Go to places, to nightclubs, to bars, drink wine, drink beer, whatever you drink, go to churches if you're a Christian, go to the mosques if you're a Muslim, all those places you're going to meet Americans. Americans can be Muslims too. Americans can be Buddhists too. So you're going to find all those things. And I would also say that on campus, as a student, try to talk to your professors. Just make an appointment with your professor and just talk about anything outside school. Just have a conversation with them. It shouldn't be more like, oh, my grades, oh, the syllabus, oh, this and all that. Try to be outside the academia, just to converse with your professors. At the same time, make friends with your classmates, just talk to them, and at the same time, you could also, did I mention joining associations? Of course, you have to do that. Personally, with my experience in America, I've been here for like 4 years now. I've joined loads of associations in my time here, and I learned a lot about Americans. Of course, you can't know someone 100%, but I know a little about the American lifestyle. And I would also say that my favorite food in America is ribs, So if you're one of those people who likes barbecue and all that, go to the Pit. This is one of the best restaurants around the Triangle. That is if you eat meat. If you're vegan or vegetarian, I cannot give you that form of advice because I'm not. So, but yeah, try to be open-minded, be open, and you're gonna learn a lot if you're just be free as a bird. So, but it's gonna be hard in the first place. It's gonna be hard, but you'll be all right.
Thank you, Graham. I really appreciate that. So just in conclusion, I'll give everybody about 30 seconds to answer this question. Let's wrap up with, what is the most fulfilling moment that you've had thus far as a graduate student? And we'll just go back to our first order. Deborah, if you could get us started. Most fulfilling moment thus far.
It might have been yesterday when I finally got IRB approval for my dissertation research. No. That's what I'm going with.
That's fine. That's great. That's an important milestone. Thank you. Alex?
As a graduate student, I've taught for the first time, and teaching can be really hard, but knowing that you've made a difference in a student's life when the undergraduate students or graduate students that you're teaching come to you and say, this class was great, you were great, you've taught me this, it feels so good.
That's awesome. Very fulfilling. Thank you, Alex. Kierra?
I think for me, I had to take a step back from organizations since I'm working on dissertation proposal, but at the time before that, I was a part of this group called Stigma Free, and we kind of created this panel discussion with students and faculty members called Setbacks and Failures, and where it was just students and faculty members just talking about like, no, really, I failed a lot to get to this point, and being in a room with 40, 50 other students, like taking in everything that they're saying and realizing that even though it's very difficult, there's a light at the other side, and a lot of it is a longer list of failures than successes. But it was really enlightening for all of us to kind of be in that space and kind of taking in everything everyone was sharing. So.
Certainly. Thank you, Kierra. Neel?
Yeah, I would say being involved with the graduate and professional student government has probably been the most meaningful experience I've had. And when I ran my virtual campaign this past spring for the present position, just being able to interface with graduate students and talk to them about their needs and their wants and their goals was really refreshing. And I'm just really grateful that I get a chance to be a part of this organization and serve students, even to try and make a little positive impact.
Thank you, Neel. And Graham?
Sure. So this is outside academia. So I would say last week, usually, okay, let me just say, I work out every day, almost every day. I try to complete like 100 miles per week. So last week I was running with a friend of mine, and she's the beginner, so to speak. So we wanted to complete 10 miles in under 2 hours, and we did it. For me, that was fulfilling, like running with someone who is a beginner and they completed 10 miles in under 2 hours. So for me, that was perfect. I was so excited, It's outside academia, but when you speak of academia, my professors and I, a month ago, we just got awarded like $500,000 US, in our huge project. It's like a 3-year project. So I'm excited that too.
Awesome. Thank you, Graham. Thank you all so much. In closing, I would just like to acknowledge and thank you all again for today's session. Mainly a big thanks to our panelists. It is a crazy time of year with all the transitions. And so I really appreciate you all taking the time out of your schedules to offer advice to the new students. Also, thanks to several members of the graduate school staff for their assistance with the panel and other orientation activities, particularly Luann Phelps, Elizabeth Poindexter, Laura Pratt, Stephanie Schmidt, and Rachel Underhill, along with the Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Suzanne Barbour, for her support and leadership. Thank you all so much for joining us, and good luck and cheers for a good, smooth transition to the academic year. Take care.